12 Angry Men is a film that was released in 1957 following the release of the book in 1954. It is a film based on the true story of the author's Reginald Rose's experience while serving on the jury. The film takes place in a New York City courtroom on a hot summer day in 1957. There are 12 men who are faced with the task of coming up with the verdict in a murder trial. A young man is on the trial for the murder of his father, and the facts of the case don't make it easy to produce a quick verdict. At the start of the film, they all seem to have it figured out and want to vote the boy guilty. But the protagonist, Juror 8, played by Henry Fonda, has a different plan and votes not guilty. This allows them to really sort through the facts, call the witnesses into question, and debate. After hours of arguing, getting through personal biases, and extreme reasoning, these 12 men are able to reach a unanimous decision of not guilty. Hello, I'm Aja, and I'm making this video simply to give my overall opinion and review of the movie and book 12 Angry Men. Just a little background on my history with this drama. I've seen this movie and read this book multiple times, and each time I have seen it, I've had the same opinion and get the same impressions from it. Since each time I've read or seen it, it's been in a classroom setting. I've heard many different points of views and opinions, but it really hasn't changed how I feel about it. Also, I have a little experience with the law, particularly jury selection and the overall trial process, because I took law class senior year and we spent a lot of time on the subject. When it comes to the role of a juror, I believe that it is their job to take the evidence presented to them, have a clear understanding of what is needed to prove a man guilty, and in this case, it's beyond a reasonable doubt, because it's a murder trial, and they need to not have a biased outlook on the situation, but I'll get into this a little later into the review. For starters, I'll give this drama an overall rating of 8. It is such a classic movie and really does an outstanding job for its time. The filmers did a great job with the dramatics of the film, and since it was in black and white, the camera angles, positions, character facials, and tone played a huge role in the overall deliberation of the movie. I believe that when it comes to a dramatic effect, the goal is to get some type of message across without actually having to say it. The movie had multiple aha moments, and instead of someone literally saying aha, they would zoom in on a person's face or have a view of everyone looking at that one person. Doing this was very effective because the viewers could get an emotion of, wow, that was a great point. Another thing they did was make it really clear that the room was hot. They would film a person wiping their face off or zoom in so that the audience could literally see sweat dripping from their face. As the movie progressed, the men would appear more and more sweaty, and this just gave the overall impression of the deliberation was becoming more intense with a heated conversation. Aside from what the camera crew was able to portray, the actors did a great job with using their tone of voice and body language to get off a certain interpretation. Juror 3 oftentimes yelled, Juror 2 was very soft-spoken, Juror 1, being the foreman, had a controlling tone. The different tones of voice allowed the audience to feel their emotion while getting an understanding of who they are as people. Now, aside from the production of the film, the context is brilliant in the sense of how real it was. The movie overall does an outstanding job of giving the audience a clear and real idea of what happens in the deliberation room. In The Juror in New York City, Attitudes and Experience, Caroline Simon describes the juror experience in New York City exactly how it was portrayed in the play. From the process of having to ask the guard for evidence, to the conditions of the deliberation room not being too comfortable, to the fact that the jurors not having any previous experience, to the jurors not wanting to leave, everything was just spot on. There were a few flaws in the drama to reality to enhance the dramatic effect, but this enhancement didn't disrupt the actual process of the deliberation. During class, we constantly talked about how jurors are expected to take all the information that was presented to them during the trial, then go into a room and sort through it. There's many things that can get in the way of a deliberation, and it can be hard to get to a fair decision that is not obscured by personal beliefs and problems.
According to 12 Angry Men, the group and the individual, there is a path to objectiveness and subjectiveness and the final accomplishment of an ethical choice.
This movie takes the audience through the process of talking through the facts and what's right when making a decision, rather than the personal bias of the individual. They have each character have their own lives and background that originally affect the first vote. As time goes on, the audience can see how personal bias and experience can be so strong in a person and potentially have the chance to send someone to the death. This aspect adds so much to the drama because it's a combination of 12 different opinions that are ultimately supposed to come together and agree. The overall group dynamics were amazing. The law allows a person to choose to get a jury trial, basically putting their faith in someone else's hands. Imagine putting your faith into the hands of 12 different backgrounds, 12 different upbringings, 12 different personal experience, and in today's time, 12 different genders and ethnic backgrounds. Then you expect them to come together and agree on one thing.
According to Mary J. Waller, the movie 12 Angry Men touches group dynamics to highlight group interactions in the most important way.
The book and play allow the audience to see how people are expected to come together and see eye to eye in the fact of matter of death. Fortunately, by the end of the drama, the men are able to reach a unanimous vote that is based off of fact. So let me move on to why I didn't give this movie a 10. While the movie was produced well and has strong content, it had a few differences from the book. As I mentioned before, I believe that jurors are supposed to take the fact for what they are unless the other side points out flaws. In the movie, because the defense didn't present a strong case, the jury felt the need to have to defend the boy and find errors in what was presented. Now, I'm not going to say that the boy should have been put away because the defense didn't do their job, but it wasn't their job to necessarily point out the flaws. And in my opinion, the book allowed the audience to overlook this. But in the book, it doesn't necessarily point out that the defense didn't do a good job and that they did the best that they could with what they had. My opinion may be slightly bent because I read the play first, so I didn't get the feeling that the defense did a poor job. Other than this one thing, I do think that the movie was accurate with the play. 12 Angry Men is a great movie that will give you the drama that you want while also giving you the visuals that you want. I would recommend seeing this movie, but maybe seeing it after you read the book.